Austin Tech Connect is the official podcast of the Austin Technology Council. Founded in 1992, ATC exists to help unite the local technology ecosystem and to encourage the spread of community, collaboration, and conversations in Central Texas. This podcast is sponsored by SailPoint. They are a leading provider of identity security for the modern enterprise, empowering organizations worldwide to put identity security at the core of their business. With a foundation of artificial intelligence and machine learning, SailPoint Identity Security delivers the right access to the right identities and resources at the right time. Now, here is this week's episode.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Austin Tech Connect. This is the official podcast of the Austin Technology Council, and my name is Tom Singer, and I've been hosting this show for over a year and a half. And every week, we try to engage with local people in the tech community to hear their stories of success, find out what advice they have for people, and just to get their vibe on what's going on around Austin. And today, we are joined by Cody Treybig. Now, Cody is the son of Jimmy Treybig, and Jimmy was actually put into the Austin Tech Hall of Fame a couple of weeks ago, which was the first year that the Austin Technology Council has started this new program. And one of the things that we're doing is we're trying to honor the past, we're trying to be present in the now, and we're trying to look to the future. And so this podcast kind of does all three, because we're going to talk a little bit about his dad and why his dad's a member of the Austin Tech Hall of Fame. We're going to talk a little bit about Austin now, and we're also going to talk to Cody because he is just out of college a few years. He's worked in a startup for several years, and he's looking to where to take his career. So we're going to be looking to the future. So Cody Treybig, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Howdy, howdy. So great to be here.
Glad to have you. So again, for those of you who don't know Cody, he is the son of a local legend. Jimmy Treybig was the founder of Tandem Computers, which was out in the Silicon Valley, but had a big presence here in Austin. When Tandem was then sold to Compaq, which eventually was sold to Hewlett-Packard, he moved to Austin and became a venture capitalist. And Jimmy Treybig was really instrumental in working with a lot of Austin companies and helping mentor a lot of Austin people. So that's why he was selected to be part of that initial class of the Austin Tech Hall of Fame. But the thing about Cody, in addition to being the son of a legend, he's really into the startup world. He grew up, all he heard about was startups. His dad was a VC. His brother is currently a partner in a VC firm. And like I said in the start, his career started in a startup. So this is what he's all about. Personally, he is a diehard Grateful Dead fan. In fact, 2 years ago, he decided that he would learn guitar so that he could play in a Grateful Dead cover band. Plus, he's just a good guy. He's kind of silly. He likes to live life, and he's really into self-growth, and we're going to learn a lot more about him. So, Cody, let's talk a little bit about your dad. You published a thing after the Austin Tech Hall of Fame where you talked about what an honor it was to be there and how your dad was legitimately one of your best friends. And your dad recently has had some medical issues, so he wasn't able to speak. While he was there, he wasn't able to get up and articulate his feelings. And so he had you actually speak for him at the event. So let's talk a little bit about your dad, and then we'll talk a little bit about the Hall of Fame.
That sounds good.
So what do you think, what you say your dad's one of your best friends. What is it about your dad that's so awesome?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I would say that, growing up, the number one thing about my dad is we just had fun together. We're very silly around each other. When I think about my dad, my first memories of him are him singing to me in the mornings before work, stealing his ice cream. He's a huge love sweets and ice cream, and so do I. Watching basketball with him, he never missed a single sports game. So I mean, just being around him and being silly and talking about the world. I mean, I think he really gave me an interest in learning, and he always wanted me to read Scientific American, The Economist, and so on. So I think it was just my best friend, one of my best friends, because we just hung out all the time, and we always just had a lot of fun.
Nice. So let's talk a little bit about his career. A lot of people don't know about Tandem Computer. What's your take on Tandem Computer? I mean, it was before your time, but what's your take?
I mean, my take is what I know from my dad. Well, let me put it this way. I've been to a few reunions for Tandem, and the most recent one I went to was in California. I want to say it was a couple of years ago. And I mean, there were hundreds of people who still came, right? Decades after the company was sold. And I'm not kidding when I tell you there were so many people who came up to my dad and said, almost in tears. Working at Tandem was the best part of my life. And maybe it's a little hyperbolic, but you could see that there was something genuine and real there. And so that to me is a perfect encapsulation of my understanding of what Tandem was. It's the number one thing my dad talked to me about growing up from a business perspective was how important people were. And I could talk in my post on LinkedIn. I mentioned a bunch of things that he did at Tandem, which were, revolutionary at the time, that had to do with people. And he talked to me about how important that was. I mean, getting the top talent to come from the other companies at the time, which were very, like IBM, right? My dad talked to me about IBM. You had to dress a certain way. You had to be a certain way. It was very structured, very strict, a total polar opposite of Tandem. So people wanted to come work there, right? They wanted to work hard. So to me, that was the number one lesson about Tandem, and then will always be the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about it.
Nice. Well, and I know that they had a big presence here in Austin, and I knew some people who worked there back in the early 90s, and everybody liked working there. So I concur with what you said. So after selling the company, your dad became a VC and moved to Austin. Why do you think he picked Austin?
Well, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, he grew up in Texas. He was actually born sort of more south near the Mexico border, and he always joked that his English teacher spoke Spanish and not English. And people sometimes pick on him for his language and the words he uses. But he tells that story. But he grew up mostly in Houston, so he just loves Texas. He felt like Austin was going to be a better place to raise Davis and I. And that's at least the reason that I always knew that why he wanted to move back to Austin. But of course, there's the element of everything that we talked about in the technology council, and what my dad talked about in the speech of, him feeling passionate about Austin as a tech scene and wanting to help grow it as well.
Well, it's interesting because you talked about the importance of people. When I was telling people who was being inducted into the Hall of Fame, when we announced it and things like that, the answer from everyone when I would get to your dad's name is they'd go, "Oh, Jimmy Treybig." I mean, people really liked him and saw him as such a mentor, as somebody who was always willing to show up and help. So that's sort of one of the reasons that I think he was nominated for the Hall of Fame, and that he was chosen for this honor. So your dad's had some medical issues of late, and so he wasn't able to stand up and actually accept the award and speak for himself. And so while he was there, he had you come up and do that. What was that like when he asked you to do that?
Well, I mean, I was there in the hospital with him when we got the call that he was going to be honored there, and he cried, right? It was an honor for him, and my mom and him and I were there, and so that we sort of started talking about, well, can he give it? Who's going to give it? That he wanted me to do it. So for me, it just made me feel very close to him. I mean, really proud to be there and feel connected with him. So on a personal level with him and my relationship with him, it meant a great deal to me.
So he wrote a very short but very poignant little piece that you read. Would you mind sharing that now on the podcast?
I'd be happy to. Yeah.
All right. So this is what Cody read at the Hall of Fame induction ceremony. The words from his father accepting the award. Cody, go ahead.
Okay. So it's my honor to say a few words of thanks for my dad and truly one of my best friends, Jimmy Treybig. He's been such an inspiration to me from the time I was very little that I also entered the Austin startup world post-college. Unfortunately, he did suffer a very serious accident about 10 weeks ago. And after 2 emergency surgeries and then a third one, here he is again today. I just saw him this morning. He's playing pickleball right now, or he's with the pickleball group, against many odds on his path to glory, as he always likes to say, and he's doing better than ever. So he asked me to deliver a couple of words for him as a thanks to the Austin community who welcomed him so warmly when he moved back here in 1996. So here it is from my dad. Thank you so much for this honor. I am so proud to be part of this esteemed group of Austin visionaries and have made such a difference to the Austin tech ecosystem myself, whether it was through board memberships, mentoring, venture capital investments. I am so thankful for the successes I saw in Silicon Valley, which is where I started my career. And fast forward to today, I'm actually even more excited for what I see in Austin moving forward. The future of Austin is looking brighter and brighter. For example, look at all the large tech companies moving here. The Austin environment fosters incredible creativity as seen in the music, film, and health sectors, for example. Creative people want to come to Austin. People can put their headquarters anywhere, but they're choosing here. And this is fueling many talented people to come here. And then I believe they will want to start their own companies. It's a fantastic pipeline. When I opened a manufacturing plant here back in the 70s, Austin was a technology desert. And some might wonder why I selected Austin back then. I wish I had a brilliant answer, but I just love Texas, barbecue, and the broken spoke. And now when I look around, I'm delighted how important Austin has become to the tech world. Thank you.
That is it's so beautiful, and it's so clear. And I agree with your dad. I think that the best days really are ahead. I think that Austin's future looks brighter and brighter. And so I just wanted to take a little bit of time on this interview just to make sure that everybody listening who wasn't able to be with us at the Hall of Fame kind of knew who your dad was and how important Austin has been to him, and of course the impact that he's made. So thanks for sharing that with us, Cody.
Absolutely.
So I'd like to switch over a little bit to you. So you did your undergrad at Rice, which I believe is also your father's undergrad alma mater. Is that correct?
That's right.
So you went to Rice, and then let's talk about your couple of years after that. What did you do after getting out of Rice?
So I feel very lucky on the opportunity I had when I got out of Rice. I worked for a company formerly called TabbedOut. So many in the Austin community may know TabbedOut. It's called Union now. They sort of had a major pivot. They used to be a company that had an app on your phone. You go to a bar, you open your tab on your phone, close it out on your phone when you're ready to leave. A few years down the line, I think it was like 2017 or 2018, they pivoted and made their own point of sale system, and then relaunched during COVID the mobile piece that was a full integration to their own system.
Nice.
So that's and there's a bit more to the business model and what they did, and I'm happy to get into that if that's interesting. But what I did there, I'm very passionate, as I mentioned, about startups and how technology just changes industries. So for me, it was a very exciting product that had the potential to totally change the bar industry, which is an industry that hasn't changed in decades, right? I mean, if you think of bar, the last major change was maybe when credit cards started, right? I mean, but other than that, how have they changed in decades, right? So bringing technology to an industry that doesn't really use it. And so because I was so passionate about the product and it was my first role, when I got to Union, I didn't have a specific role that I was put into. They were just going to find where I could make a difference. I quickly fell in love with our CRM tool, HubSpot. The first time I saw it, I was like, oh, this is quite possibly the coolest product I've ever seen. So, our HubSpot portal, no one had been sort of managing it well. It was sort of in a state of disarray. Whenever our leadership team needed any sort of data, it was difficult because of that. So I sort of made my first project there, learning HubSpot, mastering HubSpot, and setting up all of our customer-centric processes in HubSpot. I'm very proud. Eventually, I spoke to all 7,600 of their employees, being recognized as one of the top users in the country. So that was sort of my first year. There was more to it, but my second year, I was more of an account manager role, client success role. I worked with the alcohol brands that we sold advertising programs to, helping them to understand the value of what we were providing them. But I will say, all of that to be said, the number one thing about Union was I had a lot of fun. I mean, it was the most fun I ever had working there. It was some amazing people who truly invested in me, and I truly learned so much. And I'm really thankful for my time there.
So here's an interesting thing, and I'm starting to run into more and more people who are like you, but a little bit of a unicorn. Second generation Austin Tech. I have a board member for the Austin Technology Council who both his parents were IBMers. He now has a very successful startup, actually beyond startup, actually. And a couple weeks back, we had Noah Zandan, which is Peter Zandan's son, on the show. I keep meeting people at some of our different member companies who I knew their parents 25 years ago. And this, in a way, it's kind of a badge of honor, I think, for Austin's tech growth that we have so many of these young professionals now whose parents were the pioneers who created sort of the Austin tech ecosystem. But is that something you've ever thought of? Have you ever noticed it before I said it, that, second generation Austin tech? Is that something that those of you who are in that unique role have ever even self-identified as?
I'll be honest, no. I guess I've never thought about myself that way. I don't know what that says or what that means, but I actually have not.
So I do think it's interesting. And one of my goals sometime at one of the Austin Technology Council events would be to have like a panel with 4 or 5 of the kids, maybe some of their parents, talking about sort of that transition to that second generation of Austin Tech. But, you mentioned before, and I said it in the introduction, that you grew up with your dad always talking about tech and startups and things like that. So let's talk about that influence of having a parent who is involved in a growing and changing industry, who is influential. Obviously you now have this huge love for startups. What's the correlation and how do you think that connected?
Well, I think without that, something I always think about, like, you go through high school, and I won't necessarily say this is a fault of the education system, because I don't know how it might be different, but most of the teachers you haven't been involved in the business community, right? Certainly not the startup world. So you're going through school, you don't ever hear about careers or options that exist out there. You don't ever think about a new company and what that is and what that can be. And I would say it's the same thing in college to a large extent. I mean, I was an English major, right? So certainly my English professors, as much as I love them, as much as I feel so thankful for, what that taught me, we're certainly not talking or thinking about startups or the business community. So I think it's actually easy potentially to go your whole education career and not even have an idea of what a startup is or how a business operates. That's something that I wish we could change. And because to your point, without my dad and his influence, I never even would have considered it or understood it as an option.
Sure.
Right. As something that's exciting and what it can be. So I'm extremely thankful to him for always pushing me to show me how exciting the startup world is.
Right. And so what do you think it is, aside from that introduction, that makes you really like the startup world? What is it where, you say, I am passionate about the startup world? Why?
Okay. I probably give a more eloquent answer if I thought more, but my first 2 instincts is, number one, it's fun. I mean, truly, I think startup, the time I had at Union was the most fun I ever had it because, and not to get too maybe philosophical here, but I've always thought about it like this, right? Like the human brain, in my opinion, was designed to sort of be solving difficult challenges in close proximity to people. If I think about like human beings before the agricultural revolution, that's sort of what it was, right? And so to me, a startup emulates that environment. You're solving really difficult problems with people you end up really caring about because you're spending so much time with them. And to me, that is such a satisfying thing. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I just love learning. And so the startup gives you the opportunity to learn. When I went to Union, I had never heard what a CRM was. I didn't know what SQL was, right? I had never opened Tableau. By the end, I had learned at Union while I was there, HubSpot to the point where I was recognized and spoke to their entire company. I was pulling SQL queries for all of our executives as sort of the go-to person, not in the dev team doing that. And I was writing all of our Tableau reports. And so that was the most gratifying thing. It taught me so much. And I got to work. I would say the third thing is I got to work with every area of the company, from sales to operations to finance to accounting to marketing, a hardware team, right? Support team. So, I guess I could go on and on, but I don't want to make my answer too long. But it was such a wonderful blessing for me in my first job to be able to learn what I did, interact so heavily with the executives from all the levels, the people from all levels, and learn about how a business operates from all angles.
So you're currently looking for your next opportunity. Obviously, it's probably wanting to be in a startup here in Austin. What are you looking for? What's your ideal, not only type of product that you'd be involved with, but what type of role and what type of culture are you looking for?
So the role, I found the sort of second piece of what I did. In fact, I would almost frame my entire time at Union as more of client success, where my first sort of year was more internal client success. Right? I was making sure all of our over 70 employees were successful in how they were adopting HubSpot and showing them the value of that. Right. So that's sort of how I'd frame that. My second year was strictly client success with our alcohol suppliers. And so I found that for me, the idea of like sort of mastering a product, and ensuring that other people are successful in their usage of that product was a really gratifying experience. So for me now, I'm looking for more client success roles. I absolutely want to stay in the startup world. Union, I was around, we grew a lot when I was there, but we were under 100 employees. That size I love. It would be interesting to explore startups in sort of a bit larger size, to see what that's like. And then industry, I mean, I just sort of nerd out about these random B2B SaaS products like HubSpot. There's like logistics software, like HR. So I just love that kind. I don't know why, but those kinds of things just make me happy. So I guess anything in that realm.
So as you look, for that next thing here in Austin, what is it about Austin that's awesome for somebody who's around 30 years old, who has a background working in tech, who wants to stay in tech? What is it that makes Austin awesome?
So, and I can take that from two angles. I mean, there's sort of just like the in general angle, right? Like what is cool about the city, forgetting about business for a second. And there's a business answer. Sort of to take the first one, my brother has been in California now for 4 or 5 years, and he comes back and visit here. And he even said last time he was here, Austin just has so many cooler spots, these little cooler spots. And to me, that's what it is. Like, Community Garden over in East Austin, little coffee shop, right? Kind of tropical. There's so many just really unique, cool spots around the town to discover. I absolutely love that. I think the people here are so friendly. It's really, really easy to make friends. And there's just always so many cool events going on. So from a fun and cool perspective, I think that's what I like about it. I'm a bit of a hipster too. I love all the hipster things going on personally. I just bought another typewriter ink ribbon I dusted off my typewriter.
Are you one of those guys who will sit there and write poems on an old typewriter?
1,000%, yes. They're not good poems, but.
So what about the business side then? What do you think is awesome about our tech community, and why does it provide opportunity for people like yourself?
Yeah, I mean, no, there's so many jobs here, right? In the tech world, I'm currently in my job search phase after moving back to Austin to sort of be with my dad. And I found a lot of really, really cool companies in Austin in my exploration. So I just there's a lot of really cool companies here, and the people that are working there, the friends I made at Union, they're all best friends to me, right? So the people you can meet at these companies as well. So it's sort of the best of both worlds. It's a wonderful place to live, and there's a lot of job opportunities.
So, your dad said, and I concur, that the future of Austin looks brighter and brighter. And I mean, we've had a pretty bright last 20, 30 years. So when you look to the future of Austin, what do you think? What would you like to see Austin be in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years?
Well, that's a good question. I think that, I remember my dad gave a speech a couple years back about sort of, the thing Austin needs is more companies that are sort of going public and like unicorns, right? The $1 billion companies. I think we probably need some more big wins like that, right? To get people excited about Austin as a place that can happen at, right? I think we have a lot of cool startups here, but we haven't had as many of those. So to me, that's sort of probably the biggest thing that we need.
Nice. Well, if somebody's listening and they want their company to grow into being one of those big wins, maybe they should hire Cody Treybig to come and help them get to that next level.
I'll help you get to $1 billion.
There you go. So Cody, I ask everyone who comes on the show before we wrap up the interview this question, and that is, I personally believe that community, collaboration, and conversations can solve all problems. So when I say those words, community, collaboration, conversation, which one stands out to you the most and why?
That's a great question. Community, collaboration, and conversation. I would say probably conversation, right? Because good conversation can facilitate community and facilitate collaboration. I think good communication is an incredibly difficult thing. I've spent a lot of time thinking about what it means to communicate well, right? It's difficult. You have to first understand what you think and feel, which is in and of itself a very difficult challenge. Then you have to be mindful of your audience and how they're thinking and feeling, which is, another difficult challenge, and then know what to say at the right time. So communication is something that I think a lot about and is, to me, one of the most difficult things in the world. But to your point, with good communication, you can get to know someone who's different, right? I mean, that's a really important thing, getting to know someone who's different through good communication, or understand yourself better through good communication. So someone else offers a window back into you and helps you understand yourself if you can properly articulate and be vulnerable in who you are, and you have the trust that the other person is sort of not going to take advantage of that, but honor your vulnerability and give you a window back. So just to name a few things, but I've always tried to be a better communicator. It's very difficult.
No, and I think that that's actually a brilliant answer, because you're absolutely right that when you can have great conversations, that's where you get sort of that spark, that insight into someone's soul. And the more we can see that, especially in people who have different backgrounds or different goals or different beliefs, all of a sudden we can all understand each other better. And so I think that was a very insightful answer. I think that one was good. My other last question is, if someone came and visited you here in Austin who'd never been here before, and you wanted to show them sort of the vibe of Austin, where's the one place you would take them?
Oh, E6, E7th, East Cesar Chavez. Those three places, probably E6. I mean, my God, that little strip there is breathtaking. It's gorgeous. The amount of spots there that are just so fun is out of this world. So
nice.
That's my easy answer.
Awesome. Well, Cody, before I let you go, is there any last words, anything you'd like to add about your dad, about Austin, about anything else that you just think everybody needs to know?
No, what I want to say is thank you, right? Thank you for what you're doing for the Austin community and the Austin Technology Council. I think it's absolutely wonderful, and I'm really so thankful to be here and to be a part of the event that was on the other week. So most of all, thank you.
No, it was special to have you there, and it was certainly special to honor your father. So again, thank you for that. Thank you for being a guest here on Austin Tech Connect.
Thank you.
And thank you to everybody who tuned in and listened. I say it all the time. If we didn't have an audience, why would we do the show? Make sure that all your friends in the Austin Tech ecosystem are listening to Austin Tech Connect, because we try to bring you a variety of people who you may not always hear from on all the other podcasts. We try to shake it up, have people with a little bit of different backgrounds, and with remembering that in Austin, tech touches everything and everyone. So it's really important that we have this really eclectic group of guests that we have on the show. And today it was great to have Cody on the show. And also, make sure that your company is supporting the Austin Technology Council. ATC's been around for 32 years, but we're shaking it up and pointing it in a new direction. But as a grassroots organization, we can't do this without you, the grassroots of the Austin Tech community. So please support the Austin Technology Council today.
Thanks for listening to the Austin Tech Connect podcast. Make sure your company is a member of the Austin Technology Council and add your voice to the future of our tech ecosystem in Central Texas.